conversation ended hours ago. You're not there anymore. But your brain is. 7 dangerous overthinker traps. They're already controlling you, and you don't even know it. And if your brain just said, "That's literally me," you need to watch this to the end. Because what you're going to find out isn't that you think too much. It's that your thinking has been running a specific set of traps. And those traps have been making decisions for you without your permission.
Let me describe something. Not a type of person, a specific moment. It's late. You should be asleep. Instead, you're running a conversation that happened yesterday, or last week, or honestly, low-key 3 years ago. And you're not just remembering it, you're editing it, finding the line you should have delivered, the thing you should have said instead of what you actually said. And here's the part that doesn't make sense. You already know nothing about this conversation is changing. The person has moved on. Life has moved on. Logically, you know this. But your brain has not. Your brain is still in that room, still at that table, still running that conversation like if you find the right answer, something somewhere will finally resolve. That's not a personality trait. That's a trap. And it's one of 7 that are currently running your life at a level you haven't fully accounted for. 7 traps, each one specific, each one identifiable, each one eating something from you that you haven't tracked because you thought it was just how your brain works. It isn't. This is what it actually is.
Everyone thinks. Not everyone is trapped. And here's the specific difference. Because if you've ever said, "I just think too much," or "I can't turn my brain off," you've been describing a trap using the language of a personality. A trap is not a thought pattern. A trap is a thought pattern that produces the same result every time it runs. A result that costs you something and does it automatically without you deciding to engage, without a visible off switch, and without ever actually solving the thing it told you it was going to solve. You've been sitting in these traps, telling yourself you're productive. I'm just being thorough. I'm just preparing. I'm just making sure I haven't missed anything. No lie, that's the trap talking. Because the trap is smart enough to sound like you, smart enough to feel like due diligence rather than compulsion, smart enough to feel like a feature of your intelligence rather than a system running at your expense. 7 traps. And before we go through them, here is the one thing they all have in common. Every single trap on this list promises to give you something. Clarity, safety, control, certainty, resolution. And every single trap on this list never delivers it. Not because you're doing it wrong, because the trap was never designed to deliver the thing it promised. It was designed to run. The running is the point. The search for the answer is what the trap feeds on, not the answer. Which means every second you've spent in any of these 7 traps, trying harder, being more thorough, running the scenario one more time, checking one more thing, you weren't getting closer to resolution. You were powering the trap with your own thinking. 7 traps. The first one is the one you've been in most recently. I'd bet on it. Trap number 1, the replay loop. The conversation ended. You didn't. Your brain found something in it. A look that lasted slightly too long. A word choice that was slightly off. A moment where their energy shifted, and you can't quite name why. And it went back. And it ran it again. And then it ran it again. This time looking specifically at the moment where things might have changed.
And then it ran it again, from a slightly different angle. And none of these reruns have produced a different result. The replay loop is not helping you understand. It is the trap. And here is why it keeps running. Because the replay loop makes a specific promise every time it starts. If I can just find what actually happened, if I can identify the exact moment, if I can locate the precise thing I said or didn't say, I will feel better. It never pays out, but the promise resets. Every replay begins with the same promise. Every replay ends with the same nothing. And the loop starts again. Because here's what the replay loop is actually doing. It is not finding the answer. It is protecting you from sitting with the uncertainty of not having one. The replay feels productive because the alternative, I may never fully understand what happened in that moment, feels intolerable. So your brain keeps running the only option that feels like doing something, even when doing something is exactly what the trap wants. If you've ever woken up and before you fully remembered what day it is, your brain was already back in that conversation, that is a trap. Not your personality, not how you're built. A trap.
Trap number 2, the pre-mortem spiral. You have something coming up. It might be a conversation, a meeting, a decision, something you need to say to someone, something you've been putting off. And your brain, trying to help you, starts running it. What if they react badly? Okay, what if they react specifically this way? Okay, what if they react that way and then this happens? And then what if that leads to this? And what if this is actually the beginning of something that ends with you are now emotionally exhausted by an event that has not happened and possibly never will? The pre-mortem spiral promises to prepare you. It says, if I can think through every possible outcome, I'll be ready for any of them. Which sounds reasonable. Sounds like due diligence. Sounds like the kind of thing an intelligent, thorough person does. Except, you never stop when you've prepared enough. You stop when the anxiety momentarily peaks and releases, which means you're not preparing. You're riding an anxiety cycle and calling it preparation. And the preparation itself, the detailed mental rehearsal of everything that could go wrong, activates your stress response as if those things are happening now. Your body doesn't know the difference between this is happening and I'm intensely imagining this happening. Dead serious. The pre-mortem spiral produces the physiological experience of everything going wrong before anything has happened, leaving you depleted for an event that may go completely fine, and which you just spent 3 hours making your body believe had already gone catastrophically. Before Trap 3, I need to stop here for a second. Because I know some of you are not just intellectually recognizing these, you're sitting with the specific conversation your replay loop is currently running, or the specific event your pre-mortem spiral has already catastrophized. So here's what I want you to do. Drop a comment. Just one of these two. Trap 1, if the replay loop described your last 24 hours. Trap 2, if the pre-mortem spiral described something you're currently mentally rehearsing. Or drop both. Because honestly, the traps don't tend to travel alone. And scroll through those comments. Because the most isolating thing about being an overthinker is the belief that your brain is doing something everyone else's brain has figured out how to not do. Look at those comments. Tell me if it still feels isolated. Now, Trap 3. And this is the one that looks the most like intelligence. This is the one your brain will defend the hardest. Because Trap 3 feels like you're good at reading people. You're not. Your brain is very good at running trap 3. Those are not the same thing.
Trap number 3. The meaning machine. They took longer than usual to reply. They said, "Sounds good," instead of "Sounds great." They didn't laugh at the thing they usually laugh at. They looked in a specific direction when you said that specific thing. They've been quieter lately, or louder, or something is different, and you can't name exactly what, but something is. Your brain has a reading on it, and the reading is negative. Here's what is actually happening. The human brain, specifically the brain of someone with high emotional intelligence, is extraordinarily good at pattern recognition. It detects subtle changes in tone, energy, behavior. It compares current input to baseline and flags differences. This is genuinely useful. This is a real skill. Here's the trap. Your brain cannot tell the difference between a pattern it detected and a pattern it invented. The meaning machine runs on incomplete data and fills the gaps with the most emotionally charged interpretation available. Not the most likely, the most emotionally charged. Because certainty, even the certainty that something is wrong, is less threatening to the anxious brain than uncertainty. Your brain would rather tell you something is definitely wrong than sit with, "I genuinely don't know why they're quiet today." And so the meaning machine constructs a narrative, entire arcs, causes, developments, implications, from a reply that took 40 minutes longer than usual. And you'll spend the next 4 hours responding to that narrative, adjusting your behavior, managing your energy around them, bracing for the conversation, based on something that may have been your brain testing its own worst fear. And they will notice something is different about you, which will give the meaning machine something new to work with.
Trap number 4. The pre-apology. You apologize for things before anyone has called them problems. "Sorry, I know I can be a lot sometimes. Sorry, I probably shouldn't have said that. Sorry, I know that wasn't the right thing." Except nobody told you it was the wrong thing. Nobody said you were too much. Nobody indicated anything was off. Your brain ran the calculation, decided it was likely, and apologized in advance. The pre-apology feels like self-awareness. I know my flaws. I'm acknowledging them. I'm making it easier for people. Straight up, that's not what this is. The pre-apology is conflict prevention through preemptive submission. It is your nervous system deciding that apologizing first for something unprompted is safer than waiting to see if there's anything to apologize for. And here's the cost most overthinkers never calculate. Every unprompted apology confirms to your brain that there was something worth apologizing for. The apology doesn't release the anxiety, it validates it. Your brain goes, so there was something wrong. I was right to flag it. And now, it flags the next thing faster. The pre-apology is how you train your own brain to find things wrong with you at an increasing rate. Not because there are more things, because the apologizing is telling the brain its threat detection is working correctly.
Trap number 5. And this one I need you to hear carefully, because this is the trap that looks the most like a solution. The validation trap. The anxiety says something is wrong. You don't know if it's real. You reach out, ask someone, "Are we okay? Did I do something wrong? Do you think I came across badly in that meeting? Am I overthinking, or is this a real thing?" They reassure you. You're fine. We're good. It was great. Nobody noticed. you're definitely overthinking. And for about 30 minutes, you feel better. And then it comes back. Slightly different angle, same anxiety, same question forming, the same reach for the same reassurance that just worked 30 minutes ago. This is not a coping strategy. This is a loop. And here is specifically why it works against you. The relief that reassurance provides teaches your brain that reassurance is the solution to anxiety. So the next time anxiety appears, your brain doesn't look for evidence. It looks for reassurance. The need for reassurance grows. The reassurance window shrinks. The return of the anxiety speeds up. And eventually, the people providing the reassurance start to feel the weight of it. They don't say it, usually. But something shifts. And the meaning machine?
Trap 3 detects the shift, which creates more anxiety, which creates more need for validation, which creates more Trap 3 material, which creates more pre-apology. Low-key, these traps are not separate. They feed each other. They are running a full system on your nervous system, and the fuel for all of it is you, trying to solve it. Because the thing that feels like addressing the anxiety is the thing that keeps it running. And once you see that, the behavior starts to make a very different kind of sense. Right here, before traps 6 and 7. Because what I just described in trap 5, the validation cycle, I need to know if that landed. Because that specific loop, seeking reassurance, feeling better for 30 minutes, anxiety returning, is one of the most common experiences of people who identify as overthinkers, and also one of the least talked about, because it feels embarrassing. Like you should just be able to trust the reassure. Like you should be able to hold on to it longer than you do. Drop a comment. Just, trap 5 is my whole life. If that described something you currently do, or I didn't realize that was a trap. If this just named something you thought was just how you operated. Because someone reading that comment tonight needs to see that other people do this too. Needs to see that it doesn't mean something is fundamentally wrong with them. It means they're running trap 5. And trap 5 has an exit, which we're getting to. But first, trap 6 and 7. And I want to be honest with you. Trap 7 is the one that makes all the other traps permanent. If you're going to watch anything in this video, make sure it's trap 7. Trap number 6. The decision quicksand. There's a decision in front of you. Could be big, could be small, could be genuinely inconsequential. And your brain is treating it like it might be the most important decision you've ever made. What if this leads to that? What if choosing this option means closing off the other option permanently? What if I regret this? What if the right answer is obvious and I'm missing it? What if the fact that I'm unsure means I already know the answer, and the answer is no? You're not in quicksand because the decision is hard. You're in quicksand because every move your brain makes to analyze the decision pulls you deeper into the analysis, which generates more uncertainty, which requires more analysis, which produces the specific feeling of sinking. And here's the piece that makes decision quicksand particularly brutal. The overthinker's brain doesn't just analyze the options. It analyzes the analyzing. Why is this taking me so long? What does it mean that I can't decide? Does my inability to choose tell me something about which one I actually want? Or does it mean I'm afraid of wanting? And now
You're not deciding between the two options anymore. You're doing a psychological audit of your own decision-making process, while the decision sits exactly where it was, unmade. The exit from decision quicksand is not finding the perfect answer. It's understanding that the searching for perfect certainty is the trap, and that almost any decision made from clarity is better than the right decision made from exhaustion.
Trap number 7, the most important one. The one that makes all 6 before it permanent. The identity lock. You call yourself an overthinker. You've said it casually, probably more times than you can count. I'm just an overthinker. That's just how I am. I've always been like this. My brain just doesn't turn off. It's just me. Here is exactly what happens when you make that statement. You take 6 behavioral patterns, 6 traps that run on you, and you convert them into a fixed feature of who you are. Not something you do, something you are. And here's why that is the most dangerous of the 7 traps. Because we don't try to exit things we are. We try to exit things we do. We manage things we are. We work around things we are. We apologize for things we are. We warn people about things we are. But we don't exit them. So the identity lock takes the other 6 traps, the replay loop, the pre-mortem spiral, the meaning machine, the pre-apology, the validation trap, the decision quicksand, and it installs them at the level of personality. Not a pattern running on you, your pattern. Not a system operating in you, your system. And once it's your system, challenging it feels like challenging yourself. Like trying to stop being an overthinker means trying to stop being you, which feels wrong, which feels like loss, which feels like you'd be becoming someone you don't recognize. That feeling, that specific resistance to the idea of leaving the overthinking behind, is not your authentic self protecting itself. That is trap 7, protecting the other 6 traps. Because if you can be convinced that the traps are you, they never have to worry about being recognized. They never have to worry about you deciding to leave. You'll do the one thing that keeps all 7 running perfectly. You'll call them your personality, and you'll stay. 7 traps. And you might be asking, why are these so hard to leave? Because the answer to that changes everything about how you approach the exit. The traps win because every single one of them masquerades as something useful. The replay loop feels like processing and learning. The pre-mortem spiral feels like preparation and thoroughness. The meaning machine feels like emotional intelligence and sensitivity. The pre-apology feels like self-awareness and accountability. The validation trap feels like reaching out and connecting. The decision quicksand feels like careful consideration and diligence. The identity lock feels like honesty about who you are. 7 traps, 7 costumes, all of them wearing the face of something you've been told to value about yourself. And this is the specific reason that the classic advice, just stop overthinking, is not only unhelpful, it's counterproductive. Because you're not going to stop doing something that feels like due diligence. You're not going to stop doing something that feels like intelligence. You're not going to stop doing something that feels like you. The exit is not stopping the thinking. The exit is learning to recognize the costume, the moment the trap starts dressing itself up as the useful thing and making a different choice about whether to follow it into the room. Not because the trap is wrong about everything, but because the trap has a specific tell. And once you know the tell, you can't not see it every single time it shows up. Here's the tell for every single one of the 7. The tell is this. If the thinking is moving toward resolution, if each cycle produces new information, if the analyzing ends when a conclusion is reached, that is thinking. That is processing. That is useful. But if the thinking is cycling, if each replay leads back to the same starting point, If each preparation generates more things to prepare for, if each reassurance sought returns the anxiety it was meant to resolve, if the thinking is producing more thinking rather than less, that is a trap. Not you, not your personality, not how you're built. A trap running on you. And here is what changes when you understand that. You stop fighting yourself because you were never the problem. The pattern was the problem. And patterns, unlike personalities, can be interrupted. You are not someone who needs to think less. You are someone whose thinking has been hijacked by 7 specific systems that you can now name, which means you can now see, which means you can now make a different choice when they show up. Not always, not immediately, not perfectly, but differently. And differently is where the exit begins.
One last thing. If someone in your life has ever said, with love or with frustration, you think too much, and you've always heard that as a criticism of who you are, I want you to hear it differently now. Not you think too much. 7 specific systems are running on your brain and costing you more than you've been tracking. Drop a comment right now. Which of the 7 are you most ready to start recognizing when it shows up? Not eliminating, just recognizing. Because the exit starts with one simple thing: calling the trap by its name when it arrives, instead of calling it your personality. Share this with someone who describes themselves as an overthinker. Not because it fixes anything overnight, because having the language for what's happening to you is the beginning of not being run by it. In the next video, we're going to go somewhere most people have never looked. Because we've talked about what overthinkers do. We haven't talked about what the people around them instinctively know and quietly use. There is a specific type of person who targets overthinkers. Not because they're predatory necessarily, but because the patterns an overthinker runs, the doubt, the replay, the need for validation, the pre-apology, make them extraordinarily easy to manage. If you understand how the traps work, the people who have most effectively influenced your life, some of them were not doing it by accident. They found the trapdoor and they used it. That video will change who you trust and how.